Arsenal take on Liverpool in what's being dubbed a title race six-pointer by some. Do the Gunners need to win? Defeat would see them end the weekend 7 points off the top. Will Bukayo Saka make it? How about Jurrien Timber? Riccardo Calafiori is a big doubt too. We'll preview Sunday's blockbuster fixture right here on the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast with me, Harry Symeou. Let's do it. Hey everybody, how are you? Hope you're all good and having a great weekend so far. Big old game coming up at the Emirates Stadium tomorrow. I was going to do this preview show on Friday. I decided against it in the end because I was sort of woke up in the morning wondering what time Mikel Arteta's press conference was going to be, did my bit of research, found that it was going to be in the afternoon, and obviously, as you guys know, I'm on TalkSport 2 every Friday afternoon, so it made it quite difficult for me to get that out bright and early yesterday morning. I wanted to hear what Mikel had to say. Normally, he's very coy, and normally he's very sort of cryptic in terms of the way he talks about team news. Deep down, I knew that that was going to be the case again, but there was a part of me that just wanted a little something from Mikel, given that we've got concerns over so many players going into this huge fixture. What I want to start off by talking about, though, is some of the rhetoric around Arsenal at the moment, some of the narrative around this game in particular, because I found it incredibly frustrating, if I'm being honest. Arsenal are a side who have been in incredible form over the last couple of years, who have progressed so much, who have developed so much under a manager that I think the vast majority of us, it would be unfair of me to say everyone, the vast majority of us believe in, feel is taking us in the right direction, moving us towards a better place. This is an Arsenal team who haven't lost to a fellow Big Six team in the Premier League for 547 days. So when I hear things like Liverpool are the clear favourites going into Sunday's game, or Arsenal can't possibly cope with a couple of injuries, Liverpool are going to turn up and blow them away, Liverpool are going to turn up and wipe the floor with them, I get frustrated. Why? Not because I don't think it's possible. I've got a huge amount of respect for this Liverpool side, for the job that Arne Slot's done so far. I think he's been excellent. I think he's done a really, really good job of making sure that the continuity was there after the brilliant Jurgen Klopp. And we'll talk about the differences, in my opinion, between Klopp's Liverpool and Slots Liverpool a little bit later on in the pod. But when I hear things like Arsenal are going to get rolled over, and as if it's a foregone conclusion that Liverpool, because they're in better form currently, are going to turn up at Emirates Stadium and beat us, it annoys me, because it's as if all the brilliant things that we've done over the last couple of years have been forgotten. It's as though the injury problems that we know that we have led some people to go a little bit stir crazy. I get that you're worried, and I get that you're concerned. I am too. As you're going to find out when I come to share with you guys my starting 11, there's so many conundrums, so many problems, so many things to try and figure out. But this idea that Arsenal are useless and Liverpool are brilliant and Liverpool are going to come to the Emirates and are going to wipe the floor with us is ridiculous. Now, am I saying it's impossible that Liverpool come to Arsenal and win? No, I'm not, because as I said, I think they're a really, really good side. I think they've got a lot going for them. I think particularly in those offensive areas, they're fantastic. People have talked a lot about their defensive record this season, which I think has been good, obviously. But how hard have they been pushed? How hard have they been tested? And this is the thing, right? You look at them, they're 4 points clear of us right now as things stand, okay? But we've been to City. Have they been to City? No. We've been to Tottenham, our biggest rivals. Have they been to Tottenham? No. We've been to Villa. Have they been to Villa? No. The only two games on paper Liverpool have had that you would have looked at and thought, tricky, were Manchester United away, because it's Manchester United and that rivalry between the two clubs is huge. But the truth is, this is a really poor Manchester United side, as we've been saying for a while under Erik ten Hag. And the other one was the game against Chelsea last weekend, where everybody was saying, this is a huge test. And I never really bought into that, because you knew that Chelsea were going to turn up at Anfield and were going to try and play open and expansive football and try and take the game to Liverpool. Therefore, you knew there were going to be spaces for Liverpool to hurt them, and that's exactly what happened. Arsenal and Manchester City have been on a different level to everybody else over the last couple of seasons. That is undeniable. Liverpool did really well last season to keep the pace for a long time, but eventually fell short, and quite a bit short. Arsenal and Manchester City are the benchmark. So a real test for Liverpool and Arne Slot's side is coming to the Emirates. It's probably the second most difficult fixture they would have in this league. So let's see how they fare on Sunday. Let's not make it easy for them. Let's not turn up as fans being spineless, being negative, lacking that, bit of edge that we need. Because I tell you what, there's been a lot of talk in the last few years about how the atmosphere at the Emirates Stadium has improved. And rightly so, because it has. There's no question about that in my mind. But there are times where, as fans, we have to generate the atmosphere. Okay? A lot of the time, you turn up as a fan, and if your team's playing well, you enjoy it, that gets you going, that then has a knock-on effect, and that sparks the crowd into life, and you enjoy it, and you get behind the side, and all the rest of it. You get caught up in the moment, don't you? That's why the atmosphere generally at Arsenal is better, because the team is better and people are happier and more excited to turn up and watch what they're watching. But there will be times where we are needed, where maybe the performance isn't going to be at the highest possible level. And actually what we need to do as fans is give the players something back, give them that bit of energy, give them that bit of extra support, make it a hostile and difficult environment for Liverpool, for the officials on the day. I'm not saying abuse people, by the way. I'm saying put the referee under pressure. If he gives a decision against us, everybody get up in arms. If you're sitting in your seat and you see what feels like even a half-assed penalty appeal, get up and shout for it. That's what home crowds are supposed to do. That's what home crowds are responsible for. Yes, it helps when the team is good. And yes, there are points where as fans, you'll be so frustrated with what you're seeing that it's impossible for you to make noise and be happy, and people vote with their feet and all of that. We've seen that over the years in football, right? We all know that that exists. But in a game like this, where the only reason that we're as concerned as we are is because we are not at our best in terms of who's going to be available. It's not because Arsenal aren't as good as Liverpool these days. It's not because they're miles ahead of us and we should be panicked and worried or have this inferiority complex that we probably had against Manchester City, I would argue, in recent years. But it feels like we've kind of come through that and got to a place now where we're competitive against them. We're as good as anybody in this division. We just have a few issues that we need to deal with right now. And if the crowd can step in and help, even just 2, 3, 4, 5%, that can make the world of difference. It really, really can. On the pod, we're going to discuss the fitness of a couple of key players. In fact, 3 players that Mikel Arteta spoke about yesterday. And one player whom he didn't, which I thought was interesting. We're going to take some of your thoughts from the live chat. I'm going to share with you guys my starting 11 for the game. I'm going to talk about the consequences of a potential defeat. Mikel Arteta says we don't think about defeats. And that's good, because I don't want them to. But I do sometimes. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And of course, we'll share a prediction right at the end of the pod. If I could just ask you, if you haven't done so already, if you're with us on YouTube, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. If you are new, if you're listening on audio, please do leave us a review, particularly on Apple Podcasts, because as I mentioned to you guys, we lost a load of reviews on there. Lots of you have been helping me out by putting those back. So please do that for me. It really, really does help. If you haven't done one, what you're playing at, get on with it. It helps, etc., etc. And if you'd like access to our match day reaction pod, which will be with you shortly after the full-time whistle at Emirates Stadium on Sunday, then sign up to our Patreon page, patreon.com/The Chronicles of Aguna. The link is in the description below. You'd not just be getting access to additional content, but you'd be supporting me in the growth and production of this podcast, which I hold so dear to my heart. Thank you to everyone who's already signed up. If you're interested, check it out. It's not obligatory, and there's no ill feeling from my side if you don't. Please don't take it like that. But if you could support and would like to support, it's very, very much appreciated. Lots of people in the live chat. Good to see so many of you with us on this Saturday morning. It's a bit outside of our normal schedule, isn't it? But hey, we're here and we're live, and I thank you all for joining us. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the consequences of a defeat. I think it's right that we address that, but it's right that we do it now. We get it out of the way and we move on. The consequences would be, as I've already kind of touched upon, Arsenal being 7 points off the top. And that isn't good. Okay, that isn't good. And in particular, with the case of Liverpool, where they'd have come to our place and we still need to go to theirs, it wouldn't be good. In the case of Manchester City, I look at that and I think, well, we went to the Etihad already and we didn't lose any ground. So I would always look at the gap between ourselves and Manchester City with the caveat of, if we want to win this league, we probably got to beat them at home. And if we beat them at home, that takes 3 points out of whatever lead that it is they have over us. So when I look at the gap between us and City, I always look at it with that kind of caveat next to it. With Liverpool, it'll be different because this is our home game. And then asking us to go and win at Anfield is a much tougher ask and a much more difficult task. And I wouldn't be looking at that and saying, yep, we're going to do that. I wouldn't be naive enough to think that it would be easy. Like, we could do it. We're good enough, but I'm not naive enough to think that it's that easy. So the consequences outside of the points thing are that mentally, will it do us some damage? It's hard to say because from the outside looking in, you could never really measure the resilience of someone. You kind of need to be basing it on, you know, what you've seen them do, the games that you've seen them turn around, the results that you've seen them pick up. It's not something that, as an outsider, you can really measure. Now, Mikel Arteta, who works with these guys on the training ground day in, day out, will probably have, in fact, will definitely have a much more informed view on what the sort of mental strength is like within the group, the resilience, etc. But for us, we couldn't possibly tell. So I think it would be a blow if you lose, obviously, against a side that you're competing with. But the question, or the answer to the question of how big of a blow would that be, is very, very difficult to get to. And I don't even think the players would know. Like, they don't know when they're going to stop thinking about it. They don't know when it's going to stop playing on their minds, if it's going to have an impact in the reverse fixture, etc., etc. Until you get to those points, guys, you just don't know. So we can talk about the mental impact, but it's really, really difficult to quantify and to measure. What I would say is that, yes, we've played some difficult games at the start of the season, and so it makes sense for the table to be weighted in our opponent's favour, i.e. Liverpool and Manchester City, who people regard as title contenders. They should have more points than us at this stage in the season because of the fixtures that we've played. That is the case now, and that should be the case. If you were a gambling man and you were looking at the games week after week after week and you were picking out results, you would have picked Arsenal to drop more points than Manchester City and Liverpool up until this point based on the fixtures we've had. So the situation that we find ourselves in now, I'm not surprised by it. Liverpool had their day against Nottingham Forest where they completely messed it up. We had ours against Bournemouth. I keep hearing people say that Arsenal are in terrible form. And were we great against Shakhtar? No. Were we great against Leicester? No. Were we great against Southampton? No. But the fact of the matter is, guys, we won all three of those games. So all of this negativity and all of this overreaction that I have felt, and I'm sure a lot of you have felt when sort of surfing the web and speaking to people over the last few days, is a consequence of the reactionary nature of football fans these days, rather than it being a consequence of the performances or the results, I should say, that Arsenal have actually picked up. One away defeat in 2024 in the hardest league in the world. I don't think that's a bad record. And that record was always going to come to an end at some point, and we've lasted until the end of October. So try and look at it glass half full rather than glass half empty is what I'd say. Let's talk Saka, Timber and Calafiori. Mikel Arteta, very, very tight-lipped on the situations involving those three players. In fact, I'll read you exactly what he had to say during yesterday's press conference because I think all of us were sort of glued to it, hoping that we were going to get some kind of update. We didn't get that. On Saka, Calafiori and Timber, he said, we're going to do our very best to somehow have them available, but it's very uncertain. He was asked about the extent of Calafiori's injury. He said he's had some tests, but he needs more. Suggests to me that Calafiori won't be available at the weekend. I'll be shocked if he's in the squad. He was asked if he'll make the game on Sunday, Calafiori that is, and he said, I said the last time it happened, but this time it might be different. So Mikel Arteta refusing to be drawn on Riccardo Calafiori's fitness. He was asked if Saka's done any training, and we got a tiny little glimmer of positive news when he said, yes, he's done a bit of training on the grass. How far we can get him by Sunday, that's a different question. We have another day, which is a good thing, but we'll see. I am confident that Bukayo Saka will play some part in this game. I think it was touch and go whether he participated against Shakhtar, and I think Arsenal looked at that game, looked at the level of the opposition, and decided, let's work on Bukayo Saka for a little bit longer and make sure that he's ready for the weekend, barring any setbacks, of course. When we hear that someone's done some training, we're probably 24, 36, maybe even 48 hours at times behind the curve. And we know that Arsenal are very, very good at keeping things under wraps. The same with Jurrien Timber. What's the deal with him? Mikel Arteta said that yesterday was the first session that he could have some involvement. He's been out for a while. We expected him to be further back than where he is at the moment. But again, we have to wait and see. So Arteta suggesting that Timber's recovered quicker than was expected. I think those are the two that you need to look at as players that will potentially be available. Timber and Saka. Calafiori, in my opinion, is not likely. There's no word on Martin Odegaard right now. I mean, talking about boosts and blows and all the rest of it. Just imagine you turned up to Emirates Stadium tomorrow afternoon, and when the team news came out, Martin Odegaard was just in the squad. Imagine the boost that would give us and the crowd. Imagine the boost if Timber and Saka are in the lineup. So what Arteta is doing is trying to keep it quiet, which is the right thing to do and the right way to go about it, knowing that if they can work incredibly hard behind the scenes and get these guys fit, that will give us the launch pad for an incredible atmosphere at Emirates Stadium, and it significantly improves our team. He was asked how to replace the suspended Saliba. He talked about having different options, and there are different options, and we'll talk about that when we move on to the lineup. I think Saka plays, as I say. I think there's a chance that Timber plays. I think Calafiori is probably out. That's what I would say. And I get a little bit frustrated when I see things go through on social media that are just like, come on, guys. Like, for example, yesterday, Sky Sports, who were at London Colney for the Mikel Arteta press conference, they filmed and recorded part of a session. Now, during that part of the session, they failed to spot Saka, Calafiori, and Timber. Now, I'm not saying that those guys were hiding behind the trees or hiding behind the bushes at London Colney waiting for the cameras to go away. But do you honestly believe that a manager who's shown us time and time again that he wants to keep as much mystique and secret around his team going into all the big games as Mikel Arteta does, do you think, knowing that the Sky cameras were there, if there was a chance that even one of these three guys was going to make it, he was going to have them out on the grass jogging in front of the Sky cameras? Of course he wasn't. Of course he wasn't. Don't fall into the trap of going, oh my God, there's no chance of any of them playing because the Sky cameras didn't capture them. I'm not saying that any of them play because I don't know. It's my feeling that Saka will. It's my belief that Saka will. It's my belief that Jurrien Timber has a chance. And it's also my belief that Riccardo Calafiori probably misses out. I'm not claiming to know any more than any other fan. All I am saying to you is don't get caught up in ridiculous sort of overreactions to something that on social media actually doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything that they weren't caught on camera training, because if they were even in contention, I promise you, Mikel Arteta would have kept them out of the camera's way. I said to you I wanted to talk a little bit about what the difference between Arne Slots Liverpool is and Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. And I think the differences are quite obvious. One of the things, though, I will say as a kind of side point or caveat, whatever you want to call it, before I explain what I believe to be the differences are, that I believe Jurgen Klopp left that team in a really good state. And I believe that Arne Slot took it on in the right way. He took it on by saying, this is what we're good at. These are our strengths. We are going to play to them. We are going to work towards them. But at the same time, I'm going to introduce a few different aspects of the game, a few different things and features that I believe will improve us overall. So he's added his print to the team, but he's also made sure that all the things that Liverpool were good at before, counter-attacked, getting the ball from back to front really quickly, just for example, all of those things are still there. Like, all of those strengths are still there. They're all still obvious for people to see. That's what I've really, really been impressed by. It's not, I'm going to come in and reinvent the wheel and I'm going to upset the apple cart and some players are going to love me and others are going to hate me. No, he's come in and he's gone, right, this is where we're at. Actually, this is a bloody good team. Actually, Jurgen Klopp's left us in a really good state. Let's build on that. We don't have to knock it all down and start again. We will build on what we already have. We will build on what currently exists. And I think that's the key to why they've started so well. In terms of the differences, I do think that Slots side are less frantic. They're less chaotic. I do think that they have the ability to exert control more than maybe Jurgen Klopp's side did. So it's not always rock and roll end-to-end football with them. You want to play that game against them, they'll play you. They'll fight fire with fire. But that's not their default way and it's not their default approach. And although I still fear them and I'm still wary of what they have in attack, because I think if you look at the overall build of their attack, like I'm talking the starting three and then the three beyond that maybe that come in, I would argue that Liverpool have the best attack in the league. So I've got incredible respect for what they're capable of in that department. I'm not seeking to discredit that at all, but I just think because at times now they play with less tempo and less pace, and we're quite good at camping out and being narrow and being organised and being stubborn and solid, I think it means that we can kind of keep them at arm's length a bit easier than we would have done a Jurgen Klopp Liverpool. Now, that doesn't mean they're not a threat, and that doesn't mean we won't have periods where we're up against it. We will, because they're a good side. But you see where I'm going with that? If the pace is slower at times, it gives you time as a defensive unit to get back behind the ball, get yourself sorted, get yourselves organised. So I think it's going to be a bit more like a chess match than maybe some of our encounters were with Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. And I think that's the fundamental difference. Okay, let's talk about the starting 11 then. There are some players that when I look at it, they are nailed on. But there are some players who I'm just not sure play, and I'm not really sure how we cope with and deal with some of the issues that we have. Okay, so let's do this now. Let's work our way through the team. So I think it's obvious that Raya plays in goal. Okay, I think that Raya has been brilliant this season. I've really, really been impressed with the way he's kind of grown further into the role, and I'm looking forward to hopefully another good performance from him. The big problem in defence, well, we've got two problems now, really, haven't we? If Calafiori's out, is what do we do at centre-back? My solution here would be to bring Jurrien Timber in, if, of course, he's fit enough to play. The other thing is, what do you then do with Ben White? And I know that a lot of people would disagree with this. A lot of people would say put White at centre-half along with Gabriel and put Timber at right-back. Maybe that's what I would do in an ideal world. And the reason for that is because Ben White and Gabriel have known each other a lot longer. Ben White and Gabriel have played centre-half together as a pairing in the past. Now, you're going back a while, but that relationship exists. That understanding already exists, and it probably just needs a bit of refreshing in training over the course of the week, right? So I fully understand why people would say that White should go in at centre-back and Timber should come out to right-back. I get that. However, Timber, if he's not 100% fit, do you really want him playing at full-back? At centre-back, he can be covered, he can be protected, and he's got far less space to control, particularly if the right-back, who in our case is a centre-back by trade, is going to tuck in alongside him and support him. If you put Jurrien Timber out on the right-hand side, and you ask him to get up and down the pitch so that he can give us what we need in attack, but you also ask him to follow the runs of the likes of Luis Diaz, that's where the lack of total fitness might show up. I've heard others say that because Mo Salah is going to play from Liverpool's right, that Timber should play from the left. And again, I would ask the question, is a semi-fit Jurrien Timber the guy that we need to go out there and deal with Mo Salah? So having thought about all of those things, all of those factors, the defence that I've settled on, and reluctantly, because there's one player in here that I don't really want to see in the starting 11, particularly after his performance at Bournemouth, but I don't think we have much choice around. That is Jakub Kiwior, guys. If Calafiori's out, do you want to see Zinchenko at left back? I mean, that Salah versus Zinchenko thing, we've seen it before. We've seen it over and over again. I don't know that I've got the capacity to take that kind of stress again for another 90 minutes. So, assuming that Jurrien Timber is fit, my back four looks like this. Timber at right back. I beg your pardon. I've got that wrong on the screen. I'm reading it wrong. I've got White at right back. I've got Timber and Gabriel as the centre halves, and I've got Kiwior at left back. That's how I would line up, assuming that Jurrien Timber makes it. If he doesn't make it, then we've got a bit of an issue, because I don't know what we do here. Do we then put Kiwior in at right centre-back? I think we probably have to. And I know that Mikel Arteta's done that in the past. Could he put Kiwior at left-back, White at centre-back, and bring Partey in at right-back? He could do that. But again, we're talking about running power with these Liverpool players. And I worry about Partey in that department. I don't think he's looked great when he's played that role. I think he's done a good job for the team. Done an admirable job because it's what's been asked of him. But it's not the way to go for me. So if Timber is unavailable, then I think we've got no choice but to bring our Ukrainian dynamo into the defence, Alexander Zinchenko. Yeah, I don't really want to see that, but I think it could be required. Some would say bring in Miles Lewis-Skelly. Don't know. Against Mo Salah, feels like you're hanging him out to dry a little bit. My midfield two would be Rice and Partey. I would continue to play with a midfield two in the absence of Martin Odegaard, because we've got no indication that he's going to be back. On the left, Martinelli for me. I think he's been much improved in recent weeks. Gives us a hell of a lot of work defensively and could support whoever the makeshift left back is defensively dealing with Mo Salah. He'd also pin back Trent Alexander-Arnold, which is something that I think we need to do. So he would be on the left. If fit, obviously, it's Bukayo. If not, I think I'd go Raheem Sterling, you know. Some people would go Gabriel Jesus. And I think maybe what we saw in midweek was a bit of a dress rehearsal for the weekend. I think that Arteta would go Jesus over Sterling, but I would go Sterling because he's got a knack of performing against former clubs. And then I'd play with the two false nines in attack again, Trossard and Havertz. I don't know why we didn't do this at Bournemouth. I don't really want to see Mikel Merino in the starting lineup. I don't think he's up to speed, and I think in a game like this, he's going to struggle. So, assuming that we get Timber and Saka back, my 11 would be Raya in goal, White at right back, Timber and Gabriel as the two centre-halves with Kiwior at left back. I'd play Rice and Partey in the centre of midfield, with Saka operating from the right, assuming he's available, Martinelli from the left, Trossard and Havertz in attack. Should Saka be unavailable, I'm starting Sterling, but I think Mikel starts Jesus. And should Timber be unavailable, then I think Kiwior has to go in at right centre-back, and then we have to think about whether we want to see Zinchenko or Lewis-Skelly playing in that position. I wouldn't be surprised if Mikel was to go down the Partey at fullback route, because he's done that quite a bit. But for me, that's just not the way to go. I don't like it personally, but that's just my thoughts. Let me know your team selection in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'll take a couple of questions in a minute from the live chat as well, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me. I do want to just share with you guys then my prediction for the game. I'm going to go Arsenal 3, Liverpool 1. I think we're going to come out of the blocks really fast. I think we're going to go out there. There's going to be one hell of an atmosphere. And I think we're going to take it to Liverpool. And as good as they look under Arne Slot, and as impressive as they've been at the start of the season, they haven't dealt with the kind of atmosphere they're going to experience at Emirates Stadium. They haven't dealt with it. And they haven't dealt with this level of intensity and quality from any other team in the division so far, because they simply haven't played them. That's not to take anything away from them. It's not to say they can't deal with it, but it's a real test for Liverpool, this. And I'm curious to see how they get on. Let's take some of your questions and some of your thoughts. So Arsenal 3, Liverpool 1 is my prediction. Don't forget, guys, if you haven't done so already, please leave a like on the video because there's nowhere near enough likes. There's no reason why there shouldn't be a minimum of 100 likes, even 150, given how many of you are with us live on YouTube right now. Guys, it really, really does help. So please hit that like button. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We're not far from 37,000 here on YouTube. If you're listening on audio, make sure you're subscribed and leave us a review as well. That really, really does help. Check us out on patreon.com/The Chronicles of a Gooner. You'll get the match day reaction piece tomorrow after the game, but there's also a Riccardo Calafiori piece that's going to drop later on today. I've recorded it. It's ready to go. It's in the can. It's in the bank. It's ready to be released. I'm just going to delay it a little bit so that you guys get to take this one in first, and then you'll get to listen to that a little bit later on. If you want to calm your nerves, listen to something about Riccardo Calafiori. That'll make you feel better. Will it? If you're sweating over his fitness tomorrow, maybe not, I suppose. Anyway, lots to come on the Patreon platform. 2 pieces of content coming over the next 2 days. So make sure you are signed up. Okay, Michael Moscow says Liverpool are far better than we really are right now. Yeah, I mean, that's fair to say. You know, they're 4 points clear of us, but also you have to apply context. And I'm not saying we've got excuses. Excuses and context are not the same thing. Excuses are reasons why you can't achieve something. I'm not giving you excuses because we're not at the point yet where it's achieve something or don't. It's too early in the season. I'm trying to give you context and provide you context around why I think that Arsenal aren't at their best. And to me, the context is obvious, as it should be to everybody else. So I really struggle when people say, Arsenal finished, Arsenal are no good, that last year was their chance to win the league and they bloody blew it. People were saying that the season before last, and guess what? Last season, we got closer. We can get over the line this season. Believe, guys. Come on. Ron Stone says, I think Arteta will put Partey in at right back if Timber is not ready. I think so too. Jid says, knowing Arteta, he'd probably put White in the centre, Partey at right back, Jorginho in midfield, and then Timber out left. That's an option as well. If you're going to put Partey at right back, which I don't really want to see, I've already said I don't really want to see it, then this might be unpopular. Feel free to let me know what you think in the comments. I bring in Jorginho before I bring in Mikel Merino. I would rather Jorginho was in the side than Mikel Merino, based on what Mikel Merino is currently producing. And I'm not saying he was a bad signing. It's too early to say that. Let's not jump to conclusions. But I really trust Jorginho in these types of games, and I don't trust Mikel Merino yet. Let's see what else you guys are saying. Steve says, just to throw a massive spanner in the works, are you satisfied that White is 100% fit? He looked well off the pace on Tuesday, in my opinion. I completely agree with you, mate. I completely agree with you. He doesn't look up to speed. He doesn't look fit. He obviously came back against Bournemouth, struggled in that game, I felt. Played the half against Shakhtar before being substituted off because he was on a yellow card. He was substituted off because of the yellow card, Mikel said. But I do think that they looked at him and thought, you're having a mare, you're having a stinker. They probably understood where he's coming from in terms of the fact that he was injured for a few weeks prior. But yeah, he's not great at the moment in terms of his sharpness, his fitness, his match day readiness. But we don't really have a choice this weekend, do we? A 70% Ben White is better than a lot of other options. And that's kind of how I look at it at the moment. Some people are saying put Rice at centre-back. Really? I mean, Mikel's not really done that. He's kind of dropped into that hole once, I think I can remember, in an away game in Europe for a second half. But it isn't something I want to see necessarily. And you lose a lot of legs in the midfield. If you take Rice away and you leave Partey and Jorginho, for example, you've got no legs in there. It's a problem. I know we had it at Spurs, but we had to play backs against the wall, and I don't for large periods of that game, and I don't think I want to see us do that against Liverpool. Ron says, I agree, Harry. I think Jorginho would do a better job than Merino at the moment. Arsenal Avenger says, do you think our biggest strength is Liverpool don't know what we're going to do? Yeah, that's why Arteta wants to keep it quiet. That's why Arteta keeps things under wraps. That's why he even if he had some players available that he's keeping in his back pocket at the minute, you wouldn't see him training in front of the Sky cameras. You're absolutely right to highlight that the element of surprise is something that we are looking to utilise. It's something that we've utilised many, many times under Mikel Arteta in the past and will continue to do so. The thing about this Arsenal team, just before I go, is that they have many faces. Can they come out, outplay you and blow you out of the water? Absolutely they can, particularly when Saka and Odegaard are in the side. Can they sit back on you and defend and frustrate you? Yeah, absolutely they can. Can they go direct and over the top of you if you're pressing aggressively and they're struggling to get out? Can they clip the ball over the top and go to the likes of Kai Havertz in attack? Absolutely they can. That's one of the extra dynamics that he has given us since his arrival. Arsenal have many faces, and that makes it very, very difficult to prepare a game plan against us. Liverpool will believe that they're good enough to not have to turn up with a step-by-step exact game plan. They will be confident in their own ability and believe that they can come here and play their own game. So let's stop them playing their game. Let's show them a side of our game that they weren't expecting to see. I don't care if we sit back on the edge of our box and play on the counter-attack. If we beat them 1-0, who cares? Genuinely, who cares? Everybody looks at this Arsenal side right now, can see that they're without their two biggest creative forces, but then proceeds to ask the stupid question of why is there no creativity? It's bloody obvious. Should there be more than what we're seeing? Yeah, fair. But the answer to the question of why have Arsenal sort of just dropped off a little bit in terms of creativity, it'll slap you in the face if you look for it. It's obvious. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me once again on the pod. Really, really appreciate your company on this Saturday morning. Hope you're not as nervous as I am. I say I'm nervous. I've just been talking up our chances. I guess I'm trying to convince myself that we're going to go out there and we're going to blow them away. I'm telling you, tomorrow I will be bricking it. Remember, you'll get match day reaction over on the Patreon side of the pod tomorrow night. And on Monday morning, we will bring you a full episode of the podcast looking back on what's hopefully a victory over title rivals Liverpool. It's a big old game. Make sure you take it in. Make sure you enjoy it as best as possible. We wanted to be involved in these big games. We wanted to be involved right at the top of the table. We wanted to be in these contests. We're here now. Enjoy it. Come on, you Gunners. I'll see you all on the next one. Until then, take care of yourselves. Have a good day.